Guys, Thursday night, man. Here we are back again. I love it. It's great to see you all. I know we're a few people short, but nonetheless, we're here, and it's great, man. It's really great. You know, another week gone by, and we're gonna be talking about when you're in the belly of the beast. So if you got your Bible, we're gonna be in Jonah chapter 1, and it says this. And it says, and the Lord gave this message to Jonah, the son of the Amittai. He says, get up and go to the great city of Nineveh and announce my judgment against it, because I have seen how wicked its people are. But Jonah got up and went in the opposite direction to get away from the Lord. He went down to the port of Joppa, where he found a ship leaving for Tarshish, and he bought a ticket and went on board, hoping to escape the Lord by sailing to Tarshish. But the Lord had hurled a powerful wind over the sea, causing a violent storm that threatened to break the ship apart. Fearing for their lives, the desperate sailors shouted to their gods for help and threw the cargo overboard to lighten the ship. But all this time, Jonah was sound asleep down in the hold. So the captain went down after him and said, how can you sleep at a time like this? He shouted, get up and pray to your God. Maybe he will pay attention to us and spare our lives. And the crew cast lots to see which one of them had offended the gods and caused a terrible storm. And when they did this, the lots identified Jonah as a culprit. Why has this awful storm come down on us? They demanded. And who are you? And what is your line of work? What country are you from? What is your nationality? And Jonah answered, I am a Hebrew, and I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the land. And the sailors were terrified when they heard this, for he had already told them he was running away from the Lord. It says, oh, why did you do it? They groaned. And since the storm was getting worse all the time, they asked him, what should we do to stop this storm? Throw me into the sea, Jonah said, and it will be calm again. I know this terrible storm is all my fault. And instead, the sailors rowed even harder to get to the ship to land, but the stormy sea was too violent for them, and they couldn't make it. Then they cried out to the Lord, Jonah's God. Oh, Lord, they pleaded, don't make us die for this man's sin. Don't hold us responsible for his death. Oh, Lord, you have sent the storm upon him for your own good reasons. Then the sailors picked up Jonah and threw him into the raging sea, and the storm stopped at once. The sailors were awestruck by the Lord's great power, and they offered him a sacrifice and vowed to serve him. Now the Lord had arranged a great fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was inside the fish for 3 days and 3 nights. Jonah chapter 2 says, and then Jonah prayed to the Lord his God from inside the fish, and he said, I cried out to the Lord in my great trouble, and he answered. And he answered me, and I called to you from the land of the dead, and Lord, you heard me. You threw me into the ocean's depth, and I sank down to the heart of the sea. The mighty waters engulfed me, and I was buried beneath your wild and stormy waves. Then I said, O Lord, you have driven me from your presence. Yet I will look once more towards your holy temple. And I sank beneath the waves, and the waters closed over me. Seaweed wrapped itself around my head, and I sank to the very roots of the mountains. And I was imprisoned in the earth, whose gates locked and shut forever. But you, O Lord, my God, snatched me from the jaws of death. As my life was slipping away, I remembered the Lord, and my earnest prayer went out to you in your holy temple. Those who worship false gods turn their backs on all of God's mercies, but I will offer sacrifices to you with songs of praise, and I will fulfill all my vows, for my salvation comes from the Lord alone. Then the Lord ordered the fish to spit Jonah out into the beach. All right, guys, that's a whole lot of stuff there. You know, and this is the sad part about this this chapter and actually about the story of Jonah. And I hate it what it's become, because you see, when we talk about Jonah, immediately we concentrate on the whale. It's always, oh, Jonah and the whale, and like the whale had anything to do with any of this. It is, and the thing is that this story has been perpetrated in that view, not because of men, because churches have put that, have made that the focus. They've made the whale the focus of the story. Jonah's like almost the second act in this story. But personally, to me, this is one of the greatest stories in the Bible for men. I think it directly talks to us as men, and that's you know pretty bold coming from 66 great books that are all designed for man. But I think Jonah is the one book that, if I could say, this is what not to do with God. And Jonah found out the hard way. See, God calls Jonah to go to this great city of Nineveh, which is modern day Iraq. And it was a wicked city. It was a horrible city. I mean, if Jonah was to show up there, they would have killed him probably on the spot. So Jonah feared what was going to happen to him the minute. And plus, he hated the Ninevites. There was no love lost there. He did not want to go to preach to these people, to do anything for these people. He hated them. He hated them with a passion. So what does God do? He says, go to Nineveh. So Jonah, in his infinite wisdom, he goes and buys a ticket to Spain directly, all the way across, the ocean in the opposite direction. So, and it's funny because you think, when I read the story, and I've read it so many times, and I'm like, well, here's Jonah thinking that, hey, if I buy this ticket, I go to the counter, God's not going to do, he's just going to forget about me and what he asked me to do, and I'm going to be okay. Like if God said all of a sudden, it's like, hey, where's Jonah? I kind of lost him here on the earth. Where did he go? Like he's playing hide and go seek with God. And sure enough, Jonah winds up, in a perilous position, in a boat that is about to capsize in any minute. The sailors are asking him, dude, you're the cause of all this. Who are you? And then they start grilling him. And sure enough, they realize that Jonah is behind this ocean, behind this catastrophic event that is about to engulf him. And I could only assume, it was a typhoon or maybe a hurricane out in the sea. Who knows? It just says there was a great storm. And all of a sudden, Jonah says, dude, just toss me in the water and you see how quickly this thing is going to finish. And sure enough, they toss him in the water and it's done. And yet these guys repented and started to believe in God. Jonah didn't even have to preach. These guys repented on the spot because they saw the power of God. And yet Jonah was still trying to run from God at this point. But God was merciful, engulfs him in the mouth of a great fish. I'm not going to say a whale. God could have made up a fish on the spot if he wanted to. Nowhere does the Bible say it was a whale. We're going to assume for all intents purposes, that it was, because it's probably about the only biggest fish that can house a man like that. But then again, it could have gotten in the mouth of an oversized grouper, and Jonah was going to be in a tight fit for the next 3 days. But nonetheless, today's message is when you're in the belly of the great, of the beast. And that's how I think most of us find ourselves tonight. Through this entire journey, that this one, almost 1 year journey that we've been at this together, each one of us, at some point, or even now, or guys that I been able to talk to along the way, we're surrounded by difficulties. We're surrounded by problems and situations, and we're overwhelmed. And let's be honest, something, you feel sometimes, man, you're just in the belly of the beast. Because when you look around, it's just storms everywhere. You're literally just, I mean, I talked to some guys and they're like, Joe, he says, I can't get my head above water, man. Because if it's not one thing, it's the other. And it's just a constant barrage of the everyday problems. And some of us are really just burdened and we're weighed down, and it's causing a problem. And it's causing a problem in our lives. It's causing our problems in our relationship with God. And it's causing problems in our relationship with our spouse. And it's causing problems with our children and our co-workers and everyone around us. So everyone gets affected. Just how Jonah's situation was when Jonah's life with God was off. His entire world around him was suffering. Everybody around him was suffering. All these sailors were suffering Jonah's storm. You see, even though they were not related to Jonah, they had nothing to do with Jonah. They couldn't, they had, there was nothing that any bloodline, they didn't even worship the same God as Jonah. But yet they were suffering Jonah's fate because at that moment, Jonah was on their boat. And so they had to deal with Jonah's problem. Jonah's running from God at this point. But everybody else around him was suffering the consequences of his rebellion. See, God told him to do one thing, he decides he's going to do another, and then his entire world starts to collapse. So I think most of us feel that we're on that same boat. A lot of us, we've at one point or another, we've run from God. God has called us to one thing, and we've punched a ticket somewhere else. We've gotten to our own boat, to Tarshish, and gone, and gone astray. And then we find ourselves in the middle of this storm. And we're like, and I'm sure Jonah was, when he was sitting there in the mouth of that, in the belly of that beast, he's saying, how did I get here? What led me, what events got me here? And you know what? It was Jonah's doing. Jonah didn't wind up in the mouth, in the belly of a fish because, God thought it would be an amusing story to add into the 66 books of the Bible. He did it to show us that when we run from him, there's consequences. When we stray away from him, there's consequences that are going to be paid. And not only are we going to suffer, but those around us are going to suffer. And the storm is not only going to affect us personally, it's going to affect everyone around us. And so Jonah's facing this great storm, and I think we're facing the same storm to a certain degree. We ask ourselves, well, God, why am I going through all this? Well, why am I going through medical issues or marital issues or children issues or work issues or life issues in general? And it's one problem after the other, and I wake up, it's just another headache. And my finances and this and that, and everything's just compiling. And then instead of running to God, with our problems, we tend to stray away from them. I can't tell you the amount of men that I talk to that have been on the Zoom or were at one point were part of this group, and I flat out ask them, I said, bro, what's going on? Well, no, man, I'm just, I'm not right with God, so I'm just taking back. And I'm like, that's the wrong answer, dude. That's when you need to get closer. If your life is messed up, you need to get closer to him. Running from him is not going to solve anything. It's just going to make whatever storm you're going through even worse. And then, I hate this, to take a man unless he gives me that permission. And I said, well, how'd you get into the storm in the first place? Well, when we say financial situations, okay, who told you to buy a house 5 times bigger than what you can afford? Or to buy that third car that you didn't need? Or, to add on to this. So now you're working twice as much because you can't afford what you got. Your marriage is stressed out because, the bills aren't, piling up to what your paycheck is coming out to. So things are getting worse. So you're cracking at the seams. You're not spending time with your kids because you're constantly at work because you got to pay for that house, the boat, the vacations and everything else that comes along with it. And then, when everything is collapsing and you're in that belly of the beast and you're saying no way out, well, then God's to blame, obviously. But at the same time, he didn't put you in that situation. You put yourself in there. We put ourselves in that situation. A lot of the situations that we face, a lot of the dilemmas, a lot of the problems that we have today, its very origins are decisions that we made. And it's a chain reaction that one thing leads to another. And it's like a domino effect, and it just knocks down the other domino. And then we look back and we're like, well, all my dominoes are on the floor. God pushed them down. And he's like, no, but I'll accept it anyways. So talk to me. But we don't do that. We tend to stay away from him. So we punch that ticket when we buy that house without God's asking or his blessing, or that car, or take on another position at work that's going to cause more hours to be away from our family, away from any spiritual time that we have. And we keep doing things running from God. So, it's like we just keep buying tickets for something that God's saying, hey, I didn't tell you to go there. I told you to go here. He told Jonah, I need you to go to Nineveh. Jonah's like, I'm going somewhere else. God's telling you, hey, listen, the 3-2, That's okay. No, 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 no. You see, I need a 5'4" with a 3-car garage because I need a man cave and I need this, I need that, and I'm close to the water, so I'm gonna need a boat now, and I'm gonna need a bigger car to pull the boat. So I'm gonna have to get a bigger car. I'm gonna have to get a bigger SUV. And if I'm gonna do all that, then I gotta gotta put in some more overtime at work. So I can't spend time at home, but I'm providing for my family. And he's like, okay. And then when the fish swallows us up, then we're facing death. We're facing major problems, or when the health issues come on, and we're like, what are we going to do when our world starts to collapse? When that fish starts to swallow us, when we find ourselves treading water in the middle of the ocean, and the storm is getting tougher and tougher and tougher, we've got two options. We either could sink and drown, or wind up in the fish and think about what we did. And that's what God does to Jonah. He says, you know what? Even in the midst of your rebellion, even in your midst of your stupidity, I'm going to keep you on ice here for a couple of days, and maybe you'll come to your senses to what you did. And Jonah does that. He cries out to the Lord, and he prays to God, and he says, you know what? I messed up. I messed up. Take me back. Take me into the fold, and let's get things right, and help me to get things right, and let's move forward. And Jonah honestly repents, and the fish spits him out. He winds up in Nineveh, preaches. The entire nation of the Ninevites repent from the king and everything. It's a great story. Read chapter 3, Jonah's short book, and it all works out in the end. But so many of us wind up either drowning in the ocean, from being tossed overboard, or we're in the mouth of that beast, and we never come out of it. We never come out of it because we never look to say, hey, you know what? Where did I go wrong? What did I do wrong? When I bought my ticket, where did I buy it to? Was I doing the will of God, or was I doing my own will? Was I doing what God wanted me to do, or did I take matters into my own hands and decided this is what I want, and God's going to bless me for it? And we speak on his behalf. And at no point does God do that. We take it upon ourselves. I'm not saying every problem that we face is simply our fault. Don't get me wrong here. There's some things that are out of our control. But if I spent, 60 years smoking, 2 packs of cigarettes a day, and I got lung cancer, I can't look up and blame God. If my liver is shot because I'm an alcoholic, I can't blame God. If I went through 3 marriages, I can't blame God for that. Those were decisions I made. The only person I can blame is this guy right here. So they're problems that only we can deal with because we put it upon ourselves. We put ourselves into that storm. Jonah put himself in that storm by going the opposite direction where God had called him to do. And so many men today are doing the same thing as Jonah. We're lining up at the ticket window to buy a ticket elsewhere where God is calling us. Because if we as men, we did what God called us to do from the beginning, I guarantee you that the world we live in today would be totally different. Would be completely different. God didn't call us to climb the corporate ladder. He didn't call us to gain material wealth for ourselves. He didn't call us to mess around, to flirt, to be addicted to pornography, to be addicted to alcohol, to gambling, to television, to have 1,000 idols. He didn't call us for that. He didn't place us on this earth with that purpose. He called us to serve him and him alone. And by doing that, then he would give us everything we need to survive, to eat, shelter, to give us peace, love, and joy, and all the things necessary that in this life that we would need to avoid the storms. We will have some, obviously, because we're on this earth. We're going to go through storms. We're going to be in the belly of the beast. But how deep we're going to be in that belly, that's on us. How we define our hardship will be on us, the decisions we make. God tells us, I need you to do A, but if we do B, then we're looking at C consequences. And then we want to get upset when these things happen. So we stay away from God. We run from God because God is bad. when he does these things. God's bad when he punishes us. We don't think of that when we punish our own children, because we're trying to bring them, discipline them. They messed up. You're in timeout. You messed up. Hey, I'm taking the keys from the car. Hey, you messed up. You're not going out this weekend. God doesn't do that. It's a little bit more deeper level. He could have easily destroyed Jonah. He could have easily told Jonah when he got on that ship, drowned him, Jonah chapter 1, and there ain't no Jonah 2 or 3. He could have easily done that because he disobeyed God. It was rebellion against God. But God was compassionate enough that he sent a fish to swallow his dumb self and keep him in there. And just so he could say, can you hear me now, Jonah? Is this okay with you? Is this what you want? Or do you want to follow me? So I don't know where you're at tonight, guys. Maybe you're in the fish. Maybe you just got tossed overboard because, you're overwhelmed with your problems. Or you're sitting inside that belly of the fish contemplating what's your next move. Or maybe you're already spit out on dry land again. It's different moments in our lives that we're at. But nonetheless, we all are Jonah at some point. We're all in that same walk with Jonah. We're all either buying a ticket, we're either in a boat and everyone around us is, life is upside down. We're in the ocean, or we're in the fish, or we're on dry land. So no matter what stage of the Jonah effect you're in one of them. That is for sure. But how your story ends, that's on you. That is strictly on you. Jonah had a Jonah 3 because Jonah obeyed God. He prayed to God. He repented. And he found strength in the Lord. He saw the error of his ways and he clinged on to God and he fought hard. And the story ends well. For a lot of us, the story doesn't end well. I know so many men, again, that I would see their faces here Thursday nights, and today their story isn't ending well. And I'm praying that and I know they're in the belly of that fish right now, and I'm praying that God spits them back out on dry land. I pray every night that he spits them back out on dry land. But right now, we're at a crossroads. Our world is upside down. Our entire nation is literally upside down. Because you can watch 10 minutes of the news and know that this is going nowhere good real fast. They're passing one of the most probably horrible legislations against Christians today. And if that goes through, it'll be disastrous for this nation, for every Christian church, community, college, you name it. And that's a trickle effect. And you're like, well, how can this happen? This is the United States. This nation was founded on God and all this. It's because we as men veered off course. We bought a ticket elsewhere. We bought a ticket to our careers. We bought our tickets to fame. We bought our tickets to material things. We bought tickets to everywhere but what God called us to do. And now we are in the midst of a storm. Our country is going through a storm. We as men are going through a storm. Our children are affected. Our wives are affected. Our lives are affected. Our churches are affected. Our neighbors are affected. Our co-workers are affected. Why? Because they cast lots and we're to blame. It's plain and simple. If men would obey God, there wouldn't be a $14 billion porn industry. There wouldn't be strip clubs. There wouldn't be bars. There wouldn't be mass incarceration of men throughout the United States, because all these things happened because men decided to buy and punch a ticket elsewhere. Probably wouldn't be need for divorce lawyers. There wouldn't be children being raised by a single mom. There'd be less crime. It's a domino effect. It's cause and effect. The cause is us, and the effect is what we're living. the persecution that the Christian church is living today is for the lack of leadership from us. So we're reaping the storm. So we're in the middle of this storm. We're in the middle of the belly of the beast, and we're asking, what happened? Or why has God allowed this? Or why has he abandoned us? Roll the tape back. And he asked us to go to Nineveh. We went elsewhere. You can name your Joppa wherever you want. So God is calling each and every one of us at this moment, in the midst of the storm, in the midst of in the belly of this beast, and he's saying, wake up. I need you to repent. I need you to refocus. And I need you to do what I've called you to do. He's given us the tools for success. He's given us the tools to make it. He's given us the tools to be good fathers, to be good husbands, to be good sons. He's given us the tools to overcome fear, to overcome anxiety, to overcome our situations. But as long as we keep buying a ticket somewhere else, we're going to stay in the midst of the storm. And some of us may survive, and some of us will go down. Some of us will wind up in the belly of that fish and maybe die in that fish, or some of us will be on dry ground. But wherever it may be, it's going to happen. There's going to be a consequence to our actions. So as you stand tonight at the ticket window, ask yourself, am I buying this ticket to where I want to go, or is this where God wants to take me? Is the decision I'm going to make tomorrow, is this God telling me, hey, this is what I feel God is leading me, or I'm taking control because this is my house, and you know what, I'm the man and I'm in charge and I'm going to do what I got to do? Simple question, guys. But the consequences to that simple question, the ramifications, are costly, are bloody, are hard, and will tear you up if you make the wrong one. We need to embrace God in a way where, if we're in the belly of that fish, in the belly of that great beast, and say, Lord, as Jonah did, I surrender. This is it. I'm surrounded. I can imagine Jonah sitting there next to the guts of this fish, the seaweed, the water, you know, a broken man, completely broken. But he didn't do it on day one. It took him 3 days to learn this lesson. 3 long days in that belly of that beast to figure it out. But he figured it out. Some of us never do. Not even 3 days, not even in 30 years. Guys, don't get stuck in the belly of that beast. If you're at that ticket window tonight, take a second and think about where you're going to buy that ticket to before you get on that boat. Because I guarantee you, if you get on that boat going to the wrong destination, the storm you're in now is going to be minute to the one that's going to come upon you. Because Jonah 1-3 was written for each and every one of us. What not to do. And what, if you do right, how it's going to go for you. It's an A and B scenario. I've taken both routes. I've been in that storm. I've been in the belly of that beast. And I've been spit out on the ground and then went right back on the boat and jumped out again and back into the storm. I'm tired. I'm tired of jumping in and out of that boat. I'm tired of being tossed overboard. I'm tired of those around me suffering because of my decisions. I don't want to get back in that belly of that beast anymore. I don't even want to go fishing at this point. I want to stay away from the ocean as much as I can. Because if he says, hey, go here, where are we going? I won't even ask. Let's go. And that's where I think we all need to be there tonight. Each and every one of us need to examine ourselves, look deep, and see a little bit or a lot of Jonah in us. and say, how can I correct this storm? How can I make this storm go calm? What did the sailors do? They tossed them into the ocean, and everything around them, the waves seceded. Jonah was still in the storm, but for the sailors, the waters calmed down. Jonah was sinking and sinking fast. Maybe that's you tonight. Maybe you're sinking fast. Maybe you're just overwhelmed with the situations you're going through, and it's a little too much. And it's a lot easy for me to sit here and say, pray it through, brother. Just pray through it and things are going to be fine. We don't want to hear that. We want to take action. We want to grab hold of the situation. But if it worked for Jonah, it'll work for you. It'll work for me. It'll work for all of us. Guys, you're at the ticket booth tonight. Please think twice before you buy that ticket. Because in the long run, you're either going to be on dry land or you're going to be fish food. Guys, that's all I got, man. Floor is yours, man.